Vice President J.D. Vance must have been experiencing whiplash today between multiple reports about whether or not he'd be going to Pakistan tomorrow for a second round of Iran talks. In a phone call today with our very own Jackie Alamany, Trump said that Vance would not be participating in these talks, citing security. Instead, he said U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner would lead the negotiations. But less than an hour later, two senior U.S. officials told MS Now that Vance will, in fact, lead the delegation to Islamabad. Jamal Bowman and Ahmed Baba are back with us. So, I mean, talk about whiplash is a good thing the guy doesn't have to fly commercial, I guess, because he would
they were
not
running out of jet fuel.
Also that and TSA lines. But this is what is this hazing at this point that Donald Trump is putting J.D. Vance through? Do either of y'all have a theory? Does anyone at the table have a theory?
I mean, the White House has been dysfunctional from the very beginning. I mean, didn't they drop war plans into a Signal chat very early on in this administration? Number one. Number two, this unjust, unnecessary, illegal war that's happening now. Neither Marco Rubio nor J.D. Vance approved of Israel's perspective on us going in. Trump winning anyway. This is a Tuesday for this administration, this level of dysfunction and this level of miscommunication. My question is, and my observation is, this is Trump once again elevating Jared Kushner to this position of negotiating on the global stage. Jared Kushner is a real estate mogul and businessman. He is there to do business deals on behalf of Trump's family. He's the same person who, a few months after the genocide started in Gaza, saying it would make amazing waterfront property. And so this is who Jared Kushner is. He is in Pakistan negotiating on behalf of it. He's not with the State Department. He's negotiating on behalf of Trump and the American people, using our taxpayer dollars and our money and our weapons to do so. This is insane.
Yeah, I mean, my theory is that, J.D. Vance broke the agreement we had with his wife, and he's out skydiving with her as we speak. But what I really think this is like, I think J.D. is really anxious about attaching himself too forcefully to this war. I think you could see it in the Jonathan Swan, Maggie Haberman story. Mm-hmm. When you're reading through it, it's like... it's like breaking down exactly what's going on. Then out of nowhere, J.D. Vance stands up and says, I oppose this war. Like, you could tell he's desperately trying to signal opposition to the war.
Every major news outlet had sources coming to say, the vice president really wasn't comfortable with this.
Exactly.
And for people at home who don't know how things work, just know that's not a coincidence.
I wonder if it was a coincidence that Tucker Carlson's son, Buckley Carlson, exited J.D. Vance's office just this week.
No, I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence, because I think Vance knows. I mean, he's thinking about 2028. That's why Rubio would rather be anywhere. He'd rather be at a UFC fight than be doing these negotiations, because he knows. I mean, look, we're back to square one here. We're back to genocidal threats. We're back to threatening,
power plants,
threatening to target the civilian infrastructure of the people we were claiming to supposed to be saving. And then, meanwhile, now we're left with a more extreme Iran. We're left with now an Iran that has a more powerful deterrent. They realize they have a more powerful deterrent than a nuclear weapon. They could short-circuit the entire global economy at will. So Vance sees how much this war has backfired. When you have 67% of the American people opposing it, a supermajority, basically the equivalent of a veto-proof majority, if the Congress actually reflected the will of the people, I think Vance knows if he wants to be a viable candidate in 2028, he has to show some kind of something here. But clearly, he can't decide what he wants to do.
It is so interesting, though, how it seems like Trump has allowed him to be in this sacrificial lamb position because Trump understands appearance and how the public reacts to things. He doesn't always receive the most accurate information, I think, from the people around him about polling. But I think he very much has a sense. You even heard him at one point before the first round of talks basically say, if it goes well, I'm going to take the credit. If it goes really badly, it's J.D. Vance's fault. And he's protecting, in the process, Marco Rubio in a way. That's why Marco Rubio gets to hang out with him at the events, be around the celebrities and all that stuff. And I just think that's odd, because if you zoom back 10 years ago, you would think Marco Rubio would be at risk in the same way that J.D. Vance would be at risk. But
I will point out that Donald Trump also put Mike Pence in charge of the COVID response in early 2020, and I think that that was not a coincidence that he did that. On the other hand, maybe Donald Trump is worried that J.D. Vance is just like a bad luck charm because, you know, he went to Hungary and he campaigned on behalf of Viktor Orban, and that didn't go so well. He met the Pope, and then the Pope, unfortunately, was no longer with us shortly after that. And now it's like, what is it? The Flemish right-wing party has said, J.D. Vance, please stay away. Please, we don't want your help. So, you know, there are different ways you can frame this.
Well, to your point, I mean, the New York Times had this from their op-ed, how much humiliation can J.D. Vance take? Does Mr. Vance still not realize that the joke is on him? The interesting thing is not that he keeps debasing himself, but that he gets less and less in return each time as his political fortunes dim. His soul has become a depreciating asset.
You know, one of the strange things, and I would love both of your thoughts on this, Jamal, though I guess first you, is that's weird to me about some of the men in the like MAGA inner circle is that like a lot of the messaging, especially from Hegseth, even around this war, it's this very like hyper masculine thing, of course, and it's sort of like an alpha male thing.
Yeah.
But then actually when you see the dynamic between all these men and Trump, they're all so submissive to him.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting thing because they want you to believe that they are alpha men, but they're constantly accepting humiliation.
Well, he only likes losers around him. Remember? He
literally said
He literally told us.
But it's like if you are trying to convince women or convince people that you are this like dominant male, you are actually constantly performing these like humiliation and submissive rituals in the public eye. And I'm just wondering how they.
That's how much they love power.
You know what's crazy about Pete Hegseth? He works so hard to overcompensate for his impotence and his weakness. He's the kind of dude that would walk down the street in the Bronx in Yonkers and have his head down and not look anyone in the eye because he's a punk and a coward. And the only thing he has going for him is, you know, people around him bowing down to this hyper-masculine nonsense. He's a punk and a coward. So is J.D. Vance. So is Trump. This is why you asked me this question. You knew I was going to get excited, okay?
We know you well, Jamal. You've been here a few times before.
I'm tired of these people. Lord
all right. That was a layup for Jamal. Jamal Bowman and Ahmed Baba, thank you so much for joining us tonight.